So it all happened tonight of all nights. I was bored, contemplating on what I thought I could do to waste time as I chatted with the people at SMWC. We had good times and shared a couple laughs together. Out of boredom, I decided to patrol the hacks waiting to be moderated section. Seems that we hacked quite a bit, 33 if I can recall correctly. First few hacks I saw when I sorted by date were a couple of really horrible ones with bad screenshots to boot. I naturally showed these hacks to the Centralites currently on hashtag SMWC. We were laughing at how bad some of these were. But then I got to a hack called Mario. Just that, nothing more, nothing less. The description seemed quite odd, as if some Japanese hacker was trying to translate the original plot of Super Mario World in English and failed horribly. I showed this to Kieran and he started laughing at it. It reads as follows.
As you play the role of Super Mario Plumber, verify that you are beautiful, pure and or again. Monster kidnapped the Emily. It is your job to save her. This hack includes 6 levels of very long.
I simply dismissed this as someone trying to act Japanese and release a crappy hack with some edits. Curiosity got the best of me, so I decided to download the hack. I don't know what I was in for since there was only a single screenshot of just the title screen with the letters Mario from the original Super Mario World title screen. I thought it was a little odd how there were no dates or anything. Hackers usually placed their names and dates in titles to mark when the project was started. So when I opened the hack, I was greeted with 2 files. One called 3007014, a simple TXT file that was 27 kilobytes in size, and the IPS file simply named Mario. I wanted to see what the author had to say about the hack, but when I opened the text file in Notepad, there was nothing but indistinguishable symbols, letters, and punctuation. Sort of like when you open a ROM in the text editor like Notepad. It seems like the author just completely copied his ROM to TXT form, though I could be wrong. Taking a closer look at the top of the TXT file mixed in with all the gibberish, I found the only thing that looked like English in there.
Find me.
To be honest, I didn't know what to make of this. I eventually decided it was simply to waste some of my time by making me find some text in a gibberish file that I'm willing to bet no one will ever be able to make sense of. Because my interest was growing steadily, I decided I would look through my horribly disorganized download folder for a copy of a clean ROM and an IPS patcher. I then proceeded to move the ROM and the IPS patcher to the folder with the hack. I patched the ROM not knowing what to expect next, and I quickly hurried to drag it into ZSNES and play through what I thought would be a horrible hack in the form of a ROM image. I noticed on boot up that the author had taken the time to actually change the header of the hack, instead of the usual Super Mario World that you normally see when booting up a ROM on ZSNES. It actually shows the letters Mario there again. At this point, I gained a little hope, because normally people who do half-assed edits to ROMs generally don't know enough to change the header title. I thought I wasn't wasting my time with this, and my mood brightened slightly at the thought of seeing what the author had to offer in this interesting little hack of his. The title screen loaded exactly like it would in normal Super Mario World, except it was just Mario on the title, just as I mentioned earlier. Something else had grabbed my interest, more so than the unusual absence of layer 3 tiles in the title screen. Mario's normally bright-colored and happy palette seemed, how can I put it, dull. What was once a violet-like red now seemed like a gray with slight red tint to it, and I'm fairly sure his pants looked even more gray than blue, too. I thought this was strange, and I had wondered why he had decided to give Mario such a dull palette. Regardless as to what his intentions were, I felt something was off. Not in the sense that the palette was slightly bad, but that the hack was empty, like something had happened. Upon pressing start and selecting a new file, there was some sort of intro screen that basically described the entirety of the plot in a short paragraph, just small enough to fit into the black box. I began reading, and for the most part the message stayed the same, but there was one key factor that made this interesting.
Welcome, this is Dinosaur Land. In this strange land, we find that Princess Toadstool is missing again. Looks like Mario is at it again.
Normally I wouldn't think anything of this, seeing as how over my nearly 2 years on SMW Central, I have played countless hacks and have seen many intro messages. This one really stuck out to me. At this point, I definitely knew there was something a little odd about this hack. Upon letting the intro level music play, I pressed start on my controller to finally get back to the overworld and begin my journey into this unknown hack. Upon entering the overworld, everything seemed normal. Same old level paths, same old music, but the level names were different. Instead of Yoshi's house, like it always has been for every time I've played Super Mario World, it now simply just says Yoshi's. The house part was gone. I thought it was strange and I began to lose hope of this hack because it had seemed like barely anything had changed at all from the original. I was hoping to see something new. Well, luckily for me, I got my wish. I decided to enter the level out of curiosity. When I entered, the whole house that's normally there was gone. No more smoke, no more fire, no more little birdies, no more treehouse. All that was left was the message box. Upon opening, the message I expected to be there was replaced with what seemed like binary. Apparently, it says Notepad. At this point, I was on IRC telling everybody about how the hack was starting to weird me out, which yielded some sarcastic responses. But hey, it's what I expected. Anyway, after this, my interest level had skyrocketed, and along with it, my paranoia. Oh boy, was I in for a fun surprise. I decided to head left. Upon reaching what was known before as Yoshi's Island 1, the level was labeled Never Come Back. Now I thought things were going to be all Kaizo Death Trap, because generally that's what people name their levels in Kaizo hacks to make sure the player doesn't go there. To my surprise, it wasn't that way at all. Upon entering the level, I was greeted by an insanely loud clown car sound that Bowser's flying vehicle makes right before Peach falls out. Of course, my headphones were moderately high, so the sound scared the living shit out of me. It probably wouldn't have happened if I wasn't nervous beforehand. When I entered the level other than the music, everything seemed to be the same except for the fact that the little Koopa that slides into the ledges is no longer there, nor was the Bonsai Bill, or any dragons. The dragon coin was still there, however, for some odd reason, I wasn't able to collect it, or any other dragon coins for that matter. I also noticed that there was brown used blocks near the spot where the Bonsai Bill normally shows up. I can only assume this was a revisit to the level after I had beaten it, like I had seen in some half-assed creepy stories in other Mario games. Now I was wondering why things were like this, making me wonder about the intro message. Had Mario done something previously to Dinosaur Island? Was this from Bowser's point of view? I quickly dismissed the latter option because it seemed kind of stupid. So that left me thinking that Mario at one point in time in the author's story did something. But what? My mind was nothing but rushing thoughts at this point. I quickly dismissed them and ventured further into the level, only to find that all blocks had already been hit and all coins collected. There were no enemies, and I could no longer go down any pipe. At this point, I felt uncomfortable, but I decided to keep venturing. Eventually, I came across a message box, which I wasn't surprised was still in the level. Upon hitting it, I was greeted with the familiar black box once again. The message was edited, obviously. It reads as follows.
Point of advice. I hate you.
At this point, I was basically rushing to get to the end of the level, so I scurried by and came across another message box. However, this one was blank with the point of advice at the top and nothing else in it. I quickly disregarded it and headed off further to the right. Upon reaching the end of the level, I saw a fire flower in the top block where the four-way block intersection used to be. However, it was too high for me to reach by normal means, so I just continued onward. I finally beat the level, and as usual, the path to the Yellow Switch Palace was unlocked. I decided to head up the path that normally leads there, and I found that when I entered the main overworld, every other landmass and decorations besides the ghosts from the ghost houses and Yoshi's Island itself were gone. Nothing really changed at the Switch Palace except the Switch message. Just when I thought I was done with the hack, I found that Yoshi's Island 2 had also been edited. Upon reaching Yoshi's Island 2, I found that it was renamed to Yoshi's House, the original name of level 104, aka Yoshi's. I decided to enter and found that the palette of the level had been altered along with the background. They seem to have changed to the same palette as Yoshi's Island 3 from the original game. You know, the greenish tan and such. Except the background was pushed down some and was now a rotting brown color. and the vegetation of the foreground was no longer present. I decided to explore the level a bit and came across the trail of Koopas that countless players have used the shell to rack up free 1-ups with. I eventually came to the question mark block that holds Yoshi and decided to free him. Upon doing so, I got this message.
Hi, thank you for rescuing me. My name is Yoshi. On the way to rescue my friends, Mario left me in this egg.
Not far off from the Yoshi question mark block, I found a message box in the same place I remember it always being. Though if I'd learned anything at all from playing this, is that whatever was in the message box was not going to be remotely normal in the slightest. This made me hesitant to hit it, but I ended up doing so anyway. I wanted to find out more. The message I was greeted with was as follows.
But is there anything I can do to change your mind?
What the fuck? I thought to myself, what the hell does that even mean, change my mind? Was this about Mario and whatever he did, and about how people were trying to convince him to stop? Was Yoshi talking to me through these messages, or was it about me? Either way, whether it was for more backstory on what Mario had done or not, it was questioning my decision to keep playing. As I progressed further, I found out that I was right. All vegetation was gone and nothing was left at all except for a few enemies like Charging Chucks and Monty Moles. Even the pipes were gone. I came across another message box. Like all the other times before, I decided to hit it. I was greeted with yet another cryptic message.
Point of advice, this is the selfish way out.
At this point, I was actually starting to get creeped out. I closed the message box and once again proceeded further. The area with the moles seemed to be the same, except for the fact that the block next to the vine block was gone, along with the happy cloud and the dragon coin that the vine allowed access to. This made me feel kind of gloomy, to say the least. Not so much frightened as I was depressed. From this point on, it was basically just a big empty stretch of land with the end to the level. I proceeded quickly so that Yoshi and I could open up the next path on the overworld. It, too, had changed. What was once Yoshi's Island 3 is now Yoshi's Island 7. Memories of Super Bombito World flooded my mind, how the levels would take giant leaps in number order, which made it seem ridiculous. Though at this time, I didn't find it quite humorous, due to the common sense and obvious reasons explained earlier. As I entered, I was welcomed by a solid black background and a blue and gray colored floor. The place seemed frozen, lifeless and barren. There was nothing in the level at all except for the goal point, just a clear stretch of land with nothing else. I quickly lost interest and finished the level. It seemed to me it was the most empty and creepy level in the game. With the level beaten, a new path opened up. Yoshi's Island 4 was just leave now. I hesitated whether to stop playing, but my interest kept going me further. At this point, hashtag SMWC was nothing but me posting findings and messages from the hack so that others could experience what I was experiencing. This channel sadly was unusually inactive. It seemed like nobody really cared or wasn't around. I felt rather alone. I proceeded into the level. For the most part, everything seemed to be the same, save for the fact that there was now no water at all, keeping me from falling into pits without using Yoshi as a sacrifice. The level was also void of enemies, and whenever I got to the area that seemed too far for me to jump, I found I could walk right across through the air, thus getting rid of the need to use Yoshi as a sacrifice. It's apparent that the hack wanted me to keep him. I could tell that much. I was able to get to the pipe that usually leads to the exit level. I went in and found the room was exactly the same. Everything seemed to be in the right place and nothing edited, or so I thought. The message box once again broke the mood of the brief moment of relief I had experienced upon entering the pipe.
You get if you get me at the end. If you yell it, you get.
At this point, I was questioning whether I should keep going to see how it ends or quit now with the little common sense I have. The message box was indistinguishable, and I couldn't really make sense of it. For the moment, I tried to figure out what it meant, but eventually I just gave up and beat the level. I figured the box wasn't worth my time anyway. With that level beaten, the path to the first world castle opened up. now renamed from number 1 Iggy's Castle to number 1 Go Back. I sure did feel welcomed here. I decided to completely ignore the level name as I just wanted to get this over with at this point. What seemed like a normal castle intro was made especially creepy given the fact that you have to dismount Yoshi. I felt for the first time I was actually abandoning him, and I wish I had taken him with me. The inside room of the castle looked strange. There was a dark bluish black lava on the ceiling, and pieces of the goalposts that looked like pillars. Aside from that, next to each pillar were an increasing amount of message boxes as I got further and further in. The room was basically just a big hallway with no enemies or anything of the sort. Every message box I pressed gave me either a blank box with Yoshi's signature at the bottom, or a message that reads as follows.
Don't you think you've caused enough trouble?
Yet another encrypted message. At this point I wasn't surprised, not even in the slightest. Again, the thoughts of the story of this hack was circling in my head, wondering what exactly Mario had done, why he was here, and why everything seemed to hate everything about him and wanted him gone forever. I was feeling more depressed than scared at this point, to be honest, and I had no idea what to expect. I proceeded down the long hallway, checking message boxes filled with nothing but the same 2 messages over and over. Looks like they were telling me to stop playing or something. Obviously, I ignored them and kept going. I had eventually reached the end of the hallway. There was a door, of which I entered. I was welcomed by nothing but a small section of land. The level was also auto-scrolling, so I figured this must be the end, but the author wanted me to jump into the pit and commit suicide or something like that, thus ending my journey. I was actually wrong. The auto-scroll pushed me over the ledge, but I was still walking. The whole level was nothing but a long stretch of invisible land to one small piece of land just big enough for the boss door to fit on. The auto-scroll came to a stop and I prepared for the worst. I gathered my composure, swallowing some of my spit, and took a deep breath. I entered. A normal Iggy boss fight. I felt cheated in a way, but I was happy to think that this was finally over. I defeated Iggy with 2 jumps effortlessly, which was actually the quickest I'd ever beaten him before. After he fell into the lava, the course clear message popped up as usual. It ended, and I was brought to the egg rescue scene. Though instead of the usual message, I was shown something disturbing and vastly different, like a profile for the scene of a crime. It reads as follows.
Victim number 1. Eyeballs were unable to be found. The victim was found lying under carpet. Cause of death unknown. And marks with identifiable fingerprints were found all over the corpse.
What the fuck is wrong with this guy? I said as I read the disturbing message. I mean, it was a hack, but still, who the hell was the victim? Why were eyeballs gouged out? And just what could have made those unidentified fingerprints that were all over the body? Was this Mario's doing? Is this what the author was trying to tell me? Was the girl Princess Toadstool? It took me a while to see if I'd actually read the message correctly. Then I proceeded outwards, wondering what would happen next, since the main map was completely gone and there was no trace of it anywhere. To my surprise, it still showed the path marked for Donut Plains. The event tiles were even still there, marking the path to the lone level on the giant map that was once the main world. It was still called Donut Plains 1. I thought we were finally done once more, but when I entered the level, I could see that like the previous times, I was once again wrong. Upon entering, I saw 2 message boxes. They read as follows.
There is no way out of here. Fly away.
I found it quite strange that the message boxes were seemingly contradicting each other. One was telling me that there was no way out of this accursed hell, and the other was telling me that if I could fly away, I would be free. Though I saw no feather or enemy to grab one with. Was this telling me that I could either rise up to heaven or stay in hell forever wallowing in despair? Did I need a cape to proceed? And what happens after all this anyway? I proceeded to walk to the right and made a jump, but found that I was stuck in the area. There was an invisible wall and I thought I hit a dead end. When I landed, I tried moving right again to see if there was any way to go on. All of a sudden, I heard the pipe sound and watched the pipe animation, except there was no pipe actually present, so it looked kinda odd. I was then taken to a level with a black background and some stone blocks on the ground with a small door. I was immediately given a mushroom to prevent me from entering it, so proceeded further to see if there was anything else on the level. I found that the room was nothing but a long stretch of concrete blocks and the doors that were too small for me to enter. It's obvious the author didn't want me going through any of them, or I wouldn't have been given the mushroom in the first place. As I proceeded, I found myself at a dead end. Since there was nothing left for me to look at, I tried going right again. It worked. I went through a brick wall. It acted like a pipe, and Mario did the pipe animation that looked like he was going into the darkness. I was taken to a small room with what seemed like a pit and a wall. I jumped into the pit seeing how there was no other option, though I found out that the bottom of the pit was solid. I tried pressing down a bunch of areas until I came across a pipe. Mario slowly did the pipe transition off the screen, and that was it. Expecting another level, I waited and waited, but there was no more. Just a black screen. I was unable to continue, pause, or even exit the level or move. There was just nothing. Nothing at all. This was a video game representation of death. A crash. Mario had died. After playing, I think I finally understand what was happening. I believe that Mario was atoning for his actions, eventually being plummeted into a hell that looked exactly like Yoshi's Island, where he was lost to grip of death forever. I was done playing and quite relieved at that. The nightmare was over and activity on the IRC seemed to be back up again. I quickly shared my tales with the rest of #SMWC and typed this documentation of it. If you're feeling daring enough, you too can witness my tale firsthand. Remember guys, it's only a hack. It can't hurt you. Or can it? The hack being the first of its kind to hit SMW Central gained a lot more attention. Even the site's founder and administrator Kieran, currently Kieran Menner, immediately recognized the TXT file that Adam mistook for the SMC ROM image, and converted the TXT file to a JPEG file due to its header. He tried manually converting it back into JPEG, but the result was barely viewable. The only recognizable part was the very top. He then continued searching Google for images with his attempt's resolution, 327 by 277, and the second result struck him as relevant. You can find Kieran's post here. His original attempt only displays a broken image. This hack's novelty on SMW Central wore off, however, and it was removed from the hack's database after having been accepted for the first of its kind. A creepypasta hack. This is the picture that Kieran had found. Creepy review. So, this was a story. Before I continue this, I'm going to actually go back and rate NES Godzilla for a little bit because I never got to actually do that because that took way too long and honestly, I wouldn't say a waste of time, but it took a lot of time. So I'm going to go ahead and rate NES Godzilla 8 out of 10. It's very good, it's very different for its time, mainly because it's actually a good story. I was genuinely intrigued reading it, and it's just a fun read every once in a while. It's one of my favorite creepypastas, one of my favorite horror stories. The whole Melissa being in the game, though, and Red being the one that killed her, that's kind of stupid. I think so. You could interpret it as the game just fucking with him, but also, why the hell did his girlfriend have that? And he especially was looking at the moon, and then now, she had, I don't know if she had just had schizophrenia, and the game was playing off that, and makes it more personal or something or whatever. 8 out of 10. It's a good story. The sequel is coming out slowly but surely. I'm sure Cosby Daff has a lot of shit going on in his life, so, you know, more power to them. That being said, I will cover it if it comes out in my lifetime. Other than that, keep doing what you're doing, Cosby Daff. Now, Mario, just Mario. Gonna be honest with you, I don't like it. I have it in my notes. I even rated it a 7.5 out of 10. I'm just gonna bring it down to a 7 actually, because it really goes out of its way to try to be more exaggerated than it really needs to be. I know it's not really a story as a creepypasta story, it's a forum post on SMWC, which is Super Mario World Central, if you don't know. And because of that, and because it's technically real, I mean, it adds credence to it, and it's a nice introduction to the hack, especially if you're stuck like I was. The recording, if you saw the recording of the hack, I went from 5 lives to 1 life because I didn't know what the fuck to do on the 3rd level. Well, in the story, you'll figure out that there's invisible platforms there, and that's my dumbass fault for not, you know, obviously remembering or reading that part of it and, you know, taking it into interpretation. But playing through the hack and it being like 100% accurate to the story was definitely a thrilling experience. There's a lot of fan remakes or fan games that try to recreate haunted video games or stories like, you know, Silent.exe and all that stupid shit, right? But since this story it's not the fact that the game was made for the story was made for the game, to give people an incentive to go and play it, and then, well, in theory, find the other hacks and play those, but those weren't really even talked about or touched until later on. The first time I even heard about there being other hacks and there being a bigger story to the, you know, to this ROM hack of Mario was actually a Hey Peters video, which you should go check out. You know, he's a great guy. He reads creepypastas and he talks about creepy games and shit like that. Basically, Mutahar back in the old days when he did creepy gaming. Or haunted gaming, excuse me, that was Sticky Paddle. All in all, it's a classic. Nothing really terrible. You might have noticed if you're reading along with the story, there are a lot of lines that I either altered or changed just to make the story flow better and not seem, you know, like the author's going crazy out of nowhere. I just kept it to a minimum, like, interest peak, because that's really all the hack is just piquing your interest. It's like, huh, that was pretty creepy, that was pretty weird, there's a lot of interpretation to go on here. It's not like, oh my god, this crazy sick fuck, why would he put that in the game? No, it doesn't need to be like that. The story, in my opinion, is a lot better without any of that shit going in. Of course, the image being as infamous as it is, it's pretty damn horrifying, even though we do know the origins. Even then, looking at the original image is still just as horrifying. And of course, the victim 1 description, you know, it comes out of not really nowhere, but it comes out of left field, and, you know, it's just like, oh my god. It takes you very much aback. So I'm rating this I was originally going to put it at 7.5. I'm going to put it at a 7 out of 10. Of course, these creepypasta readings are Halloween centric. You know, I do them every Halloween. This was supposed to be for this year's Halloween, but obviously that didn't happen, so Merry Christmas. That being said, next year, I don't know if I'm going to do a gaming creepypasta. I might just do a normal, like not normal, but like another one. That's really about it. If you enjoyed the video, do all the YouTube stupid shit, and then I'll see you guys next time. Adios.